Good evening, everyone. You're in the spotlight with Brian Gardner for this Tuesday, May the 28th, 2019. Good to have you all here for our first of two shows this week. Good to be back after a little 2-week break here as I was on a vacation. If you can't, maybe you don't notice it, but I'm kind of sunburnt and tan. But it was a nice little trip, a little long, a little taxing at times, but it was nice to get away for a little bit. But now we're back, and we're back with two shows this week. So kind of back in our usual format. So I do some sports and wrestling tonight, and then some entertainment on Thursday. So before we get going, before we get into everything we're going to be doing and what's going to be happening and all this kind of stuff, first off, I want to, it's always tough to start off on a low note. Um, but I do think I always it's my preference to do these kind of things at the start of the show because they're always far more important than anything else you talk about. So it's important to mention in my mind at the top of the show if you're able to. We lost two sports legends over the last week. Bart Starr, of course, the Green Bay Packers quarterback, synonymous with his championship years with Vince Lombardi. He passed away over the last week, so we want to express our condolences to his family, friends, and loved ones. And may he rest in peace. A huge loss, a football legend, and just a true champion, really, and just a tremendous player. And then, of course, Bill Buckner, who passed away yesterday at 69 from dementia. It was said that it was a rough go for him, and of course, Buckner will be, unfortunately, and I think this is unfair because the guy was a great player, 2,700 hits, just a great player. He's going to be remembered for the infamous play in '86 against the Mets in the World Series in that Game 6 that turned that and in my mind, look, here's the thing, okay. People like to say, well, that's that. They think of that play and they think that's what lost them the World Series. It didn't. They blew a 3-run lead before that. It's a in thought for years, and some still do. But it's not fair. That's not why they lost the game, and Bill should not have had to deal with a lot of the things that he dealt with in the aftermath of that infamous play. The ball going between the legs. But it's sad that's when you read all these articles about his life and his career, that's often the first thing that gets brought up because the guy was a tremendous player. He's a borderline Hall of Famer. Tremendous player. He's a tremendous loss, and we express our condolences, thoughts, and prayers to his family, friends, and loved ones. And may he rest in peace. Again, a tremendous player, and somebody that I'm glad that in more recent years he was able to kind of get some closure and put to rest that play. But it's sad that that's so much of why people remember him is that play because the guy's a true talent, a great player, and that should be what you remember him by more so than one play that really wasn't the cost of a series for the Red Sox. But so I wanted to mention those two horrible pieces of news off the top. So again, anything else that comes after this will not be as important, but we have a show to do, so we move on. So as we start here, as always, let me remind you all the ways which you can interact and contribute to our show. Have your voice heard by emailing us at itspotlight401@gmail.com. You can also follow us and tweet us at itspotlight401. Remember to use the hashtag itspotlight401 for anything you tweet regarding our show. And you can find us on Facebook by searching for us on Facebook with our show title in the Spotlight 401, and then make sure you like our page so you can interact with us and know what's going on with the show and all that important, fun, cool, interactive stuff. All right, so on the air late, of course, we've been off the air for 2 weeks, and I come back and everything is a mess as far as this control panel. I don't know what happened, but it's look, for those that do not know, you can use. There's a new format on YouTube. It's been around for a while. I've gotten around it, but while I was gone, they kind of messed it up even more. And now I had a lot of struggles with getting situated here tonight. I was able to figure it out, but it took unnecessarily too long to do it. It really did. It should have taken like 2 minutes and ended up taking like 20. So my apologies on that. I got it figured out now, so it shouldn't be a problem. But still, it was an unexpected hindrance that I did not plan on dealing with tonight, especially on our first night back. So It's unfortunate, but that's the reason why we're on here, right? The good thing is with us having 2 shows this week and kind of being back to some normalcy here, we don't have a lot to do tonight because we now we can split things. So like I said, tonight will be sports and wrestling. Thursday will be entertainment. Tonight, obviously while we were gone, the NBA finals were set up. We can't go over every little detail, but we'll kind of run the gamut here and kind of, set up the NBA finals, talk about what's happened. Not much really, because both, I mean, we can talk about the Bucks and the Raptors. There's more to talk about there, but there really wasn't much to talk about on the other side of the fence. So we'll talk some NBA finals. Um, I can't remember if we did this or not. I'm trying to remember when the draft var. Oh, we did talk about the draft var. We did. Yeah. Okay. So we'll talk about the NBA finals. We'll do a brief thing on the MLB stand because a few of you out there were talking to me. It's past Memorial Day now. We should be able to talk about standings because the first benchmark has come and gone. We'll do a little bit with that tonight. We'll do a thing on RJ Hampton. I don't know if people followed that story today, but it's an interesting one. He's a top. He was supposed to be a top draft pick in next year's class, and he's going over to overseas to play. We'll talk about that and how it's going to impact things here going forward. And then on the wrestling side of things, we got Money in the Bank to talk about, AEW, and a couple other things as well. And that's going to be the show tonight. I know there was some big golf while I was gone, but really it just didn't interest me. I'm sorry. To me, the tournament just didn't interest me. Good for Kupka, but seriously, I just think that tournament lacked a lot of drama to me. Unlike the Masters, which was phenomenal, so we're not going to really talk about it, and really not many of you wanted us to talk about it. So with that in mind, I don't think it's worth going into. It's funny. This is one of the first times, I usually take a hiatus in May or June every year, and this is one of the first times that now a lot of stuff, at least on the sports side of things, went on. Entertainment, there were some things, wrestling, there were some things, but there wasn't a whole lot of sports stuff that went on. So we don't have a lot to catch up on with that. And again, when you're off for 2 weeks, it's kind of hard to talk about everything anyway. You just kind of move on and try to hit the big points and then kind of go on with your life. And that's what we're going to try to do. But there are some things, that usually happen that you just can't ignore that you want to talk about. So we'll try to hit on those, going forward here. But yeah, so that's what we're going to be doing tonight. Again, on Thursday, entertainment. We'll do the box office beat. We'll just bring back some TV highlights. We got a lot to talk about. We'll talk about we're going to probably some special segments. We'll do one on Game of Thrones. We'll do some stuff. We'll start the process of doing some stuff with the TV up front. We didn't do that before the break. I told you we'd do that afterwards. We'll do some stuff with that. Probably just separate into 2 segments this week and next week, but we'll see. And that will be our show on Thursday. And then next week we'll be doing next week will be 2 shows as well, as far as I know. If anything changed, I'll let you know. It'll be the same kind of format next week. Yeah, so, and then people have been asking me what's going to be going on because I mentioned that things will be changing after the highest. They will be changing. I have some important dates for you, but I'm not gonna do it tonight. I'm gonna wait till probably Thursday or next Tuesday to announce it because at least for this week and next week we'll be doing the same old stuff. So there's no need to go into it this week really if we don't have to. But yeah, so a lot of things have been finalized and things will be progressing pretty quickly here going forward. So my co-host is on. Mike, you're in the spotlight.
And I'm half asleep, so here we go again.
Here we go. All right, so let's jump in here. Let's do some stuff here. Obviously, like I said, while we were gone, we had the NBA playoffs in full swing. And look, I'm gonna speed things up by just saying this. There's not much you can say about the Western Conference Finals. It was a total mismatch. I said it would be a mismatch. I gave Portland some credit and thought they'd get a game. They came close a couple times. Golden State came back from deficits. It felt like the whole series. And look, I really don't understand why people thought that Golden State was going to fall apart and crumble without Kevin Durant. I really don't understand where that logic came from. Because it's the same team that won over 70 games without Kevin Durant. Remember when Kevin Durant signed with them? Everybody's like, they don't need him. And all of a sudden, within the last 2 years, everybody thinks they need him. Where did that narrative come from? I don't understand that. I mean, look, all you did was feed Golden State more motivation than they already needed. Because that whole idea that they needed Kevin Durant which Kevin Durant is fueling himself now, by the way, because he's going to the media and trying to, because it's bad PR. Let's be fair here. It's bad PR for him, especially when he's going into free agency. Now, look, there's teams like the Knicks that aren't going to care. Like, we need you. We don't care if the Golden State Warriors don't need you. But there's teams out there that are thinking, hey, we can have Kevin Durant, but wait, do we really need him? Can he help us? Like, it's bad PR for him. So, he's out there trying to fight against this. And it's feeding into look, we already know Golden State had chemistry issues this year. It's feeding into it, where it's like, hey, these guys play better without him because they're a better unit without him. If anything, this has made Golden State's free agent summer easier. Because if I'm Golden State, I look at Kevin Durant and go, you already made your decision anyway. You're gone. We're not going to fight it. We'll go out there. We'll give Klay Thompson a super max. We'll keep Klay Thompson with Stephen Curry, and then go see if we can find somebody that fits in our system that can give us, a decent amount of production, then improve their bench. And I think Golden State will be just fine. I think this makes things easier for Golden State to sell to their fans. I really do. This helps them. It was a one-sided series. Look, Portland's a good team, but they are lacking. They got 2 stars. They got 2 finishers, but they need more than that. They need more of a bench. They need more depth. And it wouldn't hurt them to have a third option, a reliable third option. If they get that, I think Portland will be very much in play. But they weren't ready. Golden State is still that team to beat, and they proved it. That's all you can really say about that side of things. On the other side of things, look, a week ago the Bucks had the Eastern Conference Finals in the bag. They were outclassing Toronto. Kawhi Leonard, was trying to do everything, and there was just nothing else on Toronto that was working. They get back to Toronto, and all of a sudden, Toronto gets a little bit of momentum. Kawhi Leonard's Kawhi Leonard. Everybody, other guys pick up the pace. Ibaka and Lowry, and all of a sudden, you end up with a series that turns around completely the other way, and then Toronto wins 4 unanswered, coming back from a late deficit in Game 6. And beats the Bucks and sends them home, which sets up an interesting offseason for the Bucks because they have a lot of people to be signed, a lot of decisions to make. And next year, Giannis is a free agent. And look, he had made it clear he wants to be on a championship team, that, he's there to make Milwaukee a contender. He made him a contender. They were a championship contender, and they look like they had this thing in the bag. How does this impact things? And if Milwaukee can't get at least back to the Eastern Conference Finals next year, I don't think Giannis will stay, even though he loves Milwaukee and he loves the area and he loves the fans. If that's what he wants to do is win, well, if Milwaukee regresses next year or other teams in the East get better, is he going to want to stay? This sets things up for an interesting summer and next year for Milwaukee. And you give Toronto all the credit of work. And Kawhi Leonard, nobody has turned things around for their career more than Kawhi Leonard, in my opinion. Because look, you didn't know what he was going to be. I think that got lost in all the controversies. Forget about how he was going to behave in Toronto. A team, Toronto was a team that he didn't really want to go to. He wasn't even on his map. We all were wondering how he was going to react and how he was going to play, and would there be some residual effect from last year? Would he be the same player? And also, would he push to be traded again, or how would he treat his teammates, and how would he fit in? He fit in beautifully. He did everything right this year, and you've seen the playoffs that he's had. He's been absolutely sensational. And look, Kawhi Leonard is back to being the guy that, in my opinion, next to probably LeBron James, has the most impact on a game than any other player. I honestly gotta mean that. He's a two-way player. He's just a guy that you can't. He's a tough guy to guard. You can't guard him. And he's an effective shooter. He's effective in the paint. He plays good defense. He's good without the ball, good with the ball. He handles the ball. I mean, he's just that talent that you want on your team. And if he doesn't have the behavior, like the issues off the court, or difficulty with, being on a certain team or whatever, like he had last year at the Spurs, if you don't have that drama, then he's perfect. So, this season's done a lot for Kawhi Leonard. And it's done a lot for the Toronto Raptors, who now advance to their first ever NBA Finals. Their game one on Thursday will be in Toronto. It'll be a sensational thing. Look, I don't give Toronto much of a chance here. I think Golden State's going to win this thing in six. I'll give Toronto credit. I think they'll win 2 games in Toronto. I think they'll get this series to six. I'll give them that. I just don't see it going beyond that. I think Golden State's too tough. The bigger question is going to be whether Kevin Durant even gets back in time for this series, because it's already gone much longer than anybody would have planned. He's been ruled out for game one. Many people assume he won't even play in game two. They think they'll hold him back for Golden State. Golden State's done so well without him, they don't feel like an urgency to rush him back. Look, do I think that they need Durant to beat Toronto? No, they don't. But it does make it easier. And look, I think if you're Kevin Durant, you want to play because of everything that's been going on. But is there a guarantee that he plays in the series? No, there isn't. A cap's a tough thing, and apparently, according to him, it's the worst, one of the worst, or if not the worst he's had, because he's had this injury before. So, what? Imagine if Kevin Durant doesn't play at all in this finals and Golden State wins. Like, he didn't play. He hasn't played in the last 2.5 series. It's just not the way you drew it up. But I think DeMarcus Cousins will probably play game two. It seems like he will play game two. Iguodala is obviously going to be back, I think, for game one. Golden State's Golden State to me, I think they take this thing in six. I don't expect much of a series. I think Toronto's only chance. I think Toronto has to win game one. You have to get some pressure on Golden State. You have to. You have to make them think that this is not going to be easy for them. I know some people might think otherwise, like, oh well, maybe Toronto has maybe lulling Golden State into a false sense of security is the best way to go. But no, to me, you got to get momentum right away. Win game one and set it up, and then you might stand a chance at taking this thing. Otherwise, I don't think they will. I don't think they'll have much of a chance at all. But I say Golden State in six. I think it's a rough series in a way because you want it to be competitive. I just don't see it. I'm not saying we'll have competitive games, but I mean it's what Kawhi Leonard versus Golden State's kind of fun. But I think if you want a more competitive series, it needs to be the Bucks, just because of matchups and such. But it is what it is, and yeah, I think Golden State in sixth. Mike, you have any thoughts on where the NBA is right now, the finals, or?
Man, that MLB, it's so great. I love how you're talking about the baseball, right? Is that what we're talking about?
No, I was talking about the NBA, Mike.
Oh, thank God, we're talking about a real sport. Okay, NBA. Well, I was able to watch some of the games. Clearly, I watched more than you lately, which is frankly embarrassing for you.
Really?
Well, what else did I have to do? I was helping you out.
Right, but you didn't probably. I watched a lot of the games down where I was.
Mm-hmm, I'm sure, but I watched more. And you know what? In this dick measuring contest,
Oh God, okay.
I'm a little bigger here. Anyways,
Sure.
and that's the thing. When you talk about the Bucks and the Raptors, we're just briefly going over that series. Every one of those games at the end, except for the 120 to 102 game, every single one of those games are close. So the Raptors just found a way to put the Bucks away. They tied the series and never looked back, and the Bucks could win on their home court, and the Raps decided. Because honestly, if that series went back to Milwaukee, this finals would be totally different. Toronto had to win in Toronto, and they got the win. And yes, Portland had momentum. Going briefly to the Western Conference, Portland had momentum, but when Kevin Durant was down, I think everybody forgot the Warriors were really good before Durant. It actually kind of resurrected Klay Thompson a little bit.
Yeah.
People forgot the Warriors were like the best team in the league before Kevin Durant got there.
Hard to believe.
Somehow it's hard to believe, but well, Kevin Durant's not there. Oh, well, Steph Curry finally has to score, and Klay Thompson finally has to be motivated and not just sit on the bench and smoke weed. Um, Draymond Green has to actually play now instead of be whatever the fuck he became. The Warriors actually had to play like the Warriors, and they came out, they wrecked the Blazers. And the Blazers, look, the Blazers are great, and they're gonna be here next year. But I can't believe we say this about the Blazers every year. They're one piece away. The Blazers are one piece away, I think, from being guaranteed championship team. I can't tell you what that piece is. Their backcourt is dominant, and his Cantor is double machine. I think they need just a forward. They need another scoring forward who can kind of complement Durant, or not Durant, Cantor. Honestly, if they get like Kevin Durant, they'd probably beat the Warriors. But Durant's not going to go to Portland. Durant's not going to go to Portland. So yeah, I think you're right. The Warriors, for the Raptors to beat the Warriors, they need to get momentum early. They need to kind of get game 1 or game 2 here. Otherwise, I think the Warriors will probably three-peat. Kawhi Leonard is having a bit of a career resurgence. You're absolutely correct. However, I mean, I would say something that could lead this Toronto team to a championship. Nice bald spot, by the way.
Thanks.
Just for men. Or no, excuse me, it's Rogaine. You need Rogaine.
Oh, shut up.
Anyways. Toronto, I don't know if they match up amazingly well with the Warriors. I don't know if they match up amazingly well, but it should be a decent series. I think the Raptors could probably take 2, but I think eventually the Warriors kind of overwhelm. And if Durant doesn't play, does it hurt his stock? No, I don't think it does.
No, I agree.
It doesn't really hurt his stock at all. But if he doesn't play, I mean, regardless of what happens, if they win or lose, Durant's out. So that's where we are. That was the end of my commentary.
Okay, I'm sorry, I had some echo there for a second. No, I agree. Like I said, I give the Raptors 2 games, but I just don't see it. All right, so obviously we'll cover the NBA Finals. They start on Thursday. They got this weird schedule where they play Thursday and they play Sunday and they play Wednesday, so it's weird. We won't cross over too much with it, but while it's on the air, whenever we're on the air, we'll give you score updates. But obviously, we'll talk about it along the way now that we're back. And then, of course, the NBA offseason will get started in the draft. We'll have some fun stuff with that, too. So we'll definitely cover that going forward here as we move along. Another basketball story we want to cover tonight, and this one's going to have a major impact on both college and the NBA. Now, last year we had the story. I'm forgetting the player's name. I had it on my show notes, and then for some reason I deleted like a paragraph of my show notes tonight. But Mike, you remember the guy from that committed to SU and then turned around and went to the G League. Basley, Darius Basley, that's his name. I got it. He did that last year, and then everybody's like, okay, well, this is going to start an exodus for guys that's going to start going to the G League instead of going to college, right? Well, today, RJ Hampton, he was the number 5 prospect in the ESPN 100 class of 2019, said he was going to make an announcement today on Get Up about where he was going to sign his contract, sign what team he was going to go to. Now everybody thought that was weird, like the way he was going to do this, because why would you do that? Why don't you just do it? Like nobody does that, It's usually, it's publicized and it might be aired, but it's usually done. It's not usually done on an ESPN talk show, right? As we should be at that level. Well, he announced today, RJ Hampton did, that he had signed a contract with the New Zealand Breakers of the Australian National Basketball League. He becomes the first American player to willingly forgo college for playing international basketball, unlike players such as Brandon Jennings, Emmanuel Mudiay, and Terrence Ferguson, who signed overseas amid concerns regarding their academic or amateur status. This is a quote from Hampton. He told ESPN, "My number one goal is to play in the NBA. I wanted to be an NBA player before I ever wanted to be a college player. It's about getting ready for the next level faster and more efficiently. Both of my parents went to college. My mom got her master's degree. Education is a big thing in our family, but this is about focusing 100% on basketball. You can always go back to college, but there's only a short window as an athlete where you can play professional basketball. And I want to take advantage of that. I think that challenge yourself on a daily basis is the best way to improve." That's the end of this quote. It comes as a surprise after he cut his college recruitment list in recent days to Kansas, Memphis, and Texas Tech. He also had offers from Duke, Kentucky, and others. He was predicted to be the number 1 6 in the ESPN 2020 mock draft. 6'5", 188 pounds with a 6.8 wingspan. It will likely be scouted heavily by NBA executives, as he's expected to play a feature role at the Breakers. By the way, this team that he's going to play for is partially owned by Sean Marion, as well as ex-Florida player Matt Walsh. So there'll be some interest there. Obviously, they'll be able to get some things going there. But all right, so why am I bringing this up? Well, just like the Basley thing, a lot of people said open the door to a lot of potential college players saying no to college and going to the G League because they don't want to, quote, waste time. They don't want to waste time. They want to just go right to getting ready for professional ball because if they go to, their thinking is in college, going to college now is a waste. We can always go back, like you just heard what Hampton said. I can always go back to college. There's a short window. Now you got this where now there's a player going overseas to play because he wants to get started on his professional career now. Now, before I throw this to Mike, there's two ways we can look at this. One, I've seen a lot of people talk today about injury concern. This is why these guys are doing it, because they're worried about injuries. Here's the thing. You're still playing basketball. You can still get hurt. If anything, overseas ball can be sometimes more physical. So that's not in consideration here for me. Okay, injury is not the issue here. What this is this. These kids don't want to go to college. Okay, they only go to college because they're made to go to college. They have to go for the one and done, right? Now that things have changed, when things are opened up, or they don't feel like they have to. There's options now. Now they know that they can get deals out there overseas. Now they can go to the G League. These options weren't always there. Now that they are, it's a little bit of an easier thing to just go start your professional career. It's not like when Kobe just jumped right to the NBA. That was considered a big deal because not too many guys were doing it, and there were no other options. You couldn't go play in the G League. You couldn't go overseas. Wasn't offering these things to guys like Kobe or big name players or high draft pick potential players. You didn't have these things. You didn't have them really when LeBron went. So it's a different era now. And just like Basley, I said, now you're going to see these kind of players just go, you know what? Why am I going to college? I'm going to take a bunch of classes that I'm just going to sit there and not even pay attention. I'm not, and this is not me trying to deflate college. I think everybody should go to college if they're able to. Okay, I believe that firmly. I'm not trying to deflate that, but I'm just saying this is their mentality. Well, now I can just go play for an overseas team for a year and show what I can do. Maybe raise my draft stock and get a better contract, or I can go in the G League and show the same thing and maybe get a better contract or a better draft spot. That's what's going on here. And if you're a college team, this is going to change things a lot for college. I think you're going to see a lot of colleges now, okay, that are going to want commitments early and often from guys. They're not going to wait. Like before it was, well, we'll wait it out with you. No, they're going to give people, they're going to start giving players ultimatums because they're going to want them. Because here's what's going to happen. All these guys, I know it's very early in the game for the 2020 class. I understand that. But, you lose out on other recruits for that class. There could have been 3 or 4 other players that some of these teams could have went and got. And when you wait this long and then drop this bomb, there's not many places you can go. So you're going to see a lot of these teams say, you know what? You got this, almost like free agency. You have a window here before we move on to somebody else. So you can get that commitment and know that you're going to have that player. I think you're going to see that happen because otherwise, I mean, I think some colleges flat out just going to avoid some guys like this. That you know, Mike knows this too. I think one of the reasons why Jim Boeheim goes after guys that are more like projects or guys that are under the radar that don't get a lot of attention because he knows he probably has them for at least 2 years. He might go after one guy that's like this, but he usually goes after the majority of the guys he goes after are guys that he knows will probably stay a year, at least 2 years. So I think you might see some other colleges do the same thing. Does this change the game a little bit? Yeah, I think Basby started it, and now this even furthers it. And look, there's a lot that the NBA and college have to deal with here because you need to figure this whole mess out, one and done, and all this other stuff. I don't want to get into it tonight, but for the sake of this RJ Hampton thing, I do think it opens things up even more. I do think it's going to cause a ripple effect. And don't shout at me that it's because of fear of injury because you're still playing basketball, and in some ways it's even more physical. So that's not it. It's just about raising your stock and opening up some more doors for yourself and trying to improve your standing, and just saying, you know what, I really didn't want to go in the first place. I'd rather just go play basketball. That's what it's saying. Mike, what are your thoughts on this?
All right. This is an interesting situation, to be honest with you. Because when this previously happened, I believe Brendan Jennings was one of the big names that kind of came up during this whole thing.
Right.
People forget that Brendan Jennings had a academic reason for doing this.
He did, yeah.
He sincerely would not have passed, would not have got into college. So he went overseas, made some money, and then came over. And he had a pretty decent NBA career for a while, but the wear and tear of the game kind of stunted his career a little bit.
Right.
Which is one of the things you do have to worry about. Now, I'm not surprised that, and look, this kid R.J. Hampton, he his college choice. People thought he would go to Kansas, Memphis, and Texas Tech. And by the way, that's another hit for Memphis.
Yeah.
They were in on him, and they could have used him big time and
Right.
have gotten back to tournament precedence. And obviously Kansas is Kansas, and Texas Tech is kind of making amazing strides, but decided to go play for the New Zealand Breakers. Now, I am all for this decision. Now, the international game is more physical. What I would worry about for him is length of contract.
Mm.
That is his biggest deal, is length of contract. Obviously, injury. Injury is something every basketball player has to worry about. Injury is something every ball player has to worry about every time they step on the court. That's nothing. And the international game is physical. Does create a lot of wear and tear. But let's be honest with you. With the state of the NCAA, which, and I'm going to be generous with my phrasing here, is a complete shit show. I'm surprised more players aren't going overseas. I'm surprised Zion Williamson, for a name, didn't decide to go over to France for about a year or so, kind of improve his game, and then come over. Because look, you can starve in college for a year. You can go overseas, put some money in the bank, and then come over and try your luck with the NBA. And if it doesn't work in the NBA, well, I've already got a relationship overseas. I'm going to go and continue to make bank. It's a win-win from that perspective. I don't blame this kid for doing it. I think this kid's smart for doing it. Honestly, though, if I were in this kid's shoes, and I'm not clearly, but if I were, I would try to get an education at some point. Find a way to kind of save your money, and so on and so on and so on. But honestly, I don't blame him for doing it at all. it is important to get your education. It is important to learn new things and maybe learn new ways, just in case basketball doesn't kind of pan out for you. But do I blame him for going overseas and making $250,000 or whatever he's going to be making in New Zealand? Hell no. He may just stay over there. It's also a good possibility. But let's be clear here. That's not a bad decision. If this kind of works out, I won't be surprised if more players to kind of forego the college shit show run by dumbass Mark Emmert and kind of go overseas and play for these international teams. Make some money, send some money back home. You don't have to worry about eligibility. Pay off some debts and then come back over and try your luck in the draft. Smart. Yeah. I think it's smart.
Look, I don't necessarily think it's a bad decision. I mean, I do think it's going to change things. Like I said, I think colleges are going to start to like demand like an early commitment now. And because again, you know, the timing of it is always rough. Like the same thing happened at Syracuse and Basley last year. Remember how late in the game he said what he withdrew? It was like in mid-June, and by that point, you probably lost out on most of the recruits. They're going to want these guys early in the process to make a decision so that they don't get caught, you know, without any other options. I think that's going to be one of the changes. And I think you're right. With given that state of the NCAA, the fact that this ain't happening more now, it might happen more because usually you need to have that one high profile guy do it. And then all of a sudden other guys start to think, okay, if he's done and he's successful, we can do it. So now that somebody like Hampton did it, you know, being a potential top 10 or even top 5 pick, you might see more guys do it. Because now, like, okay, he did it, and he's successful in it. This is another avenue to doing what we want to do. So it took everybody by surprise. It really did. So I just thought it was an interesting story we're talking about. Now, I put MLB and MLB standings up down here, and here's the thing, folks. Okay, it is. I know what I said 2 weeks ago, and I know what people are been saying the last 2 days. Yes, once you get to Memorial Day, it's okay to look at the standings and you start talking about it and you start saying, because, you know, the trade deadline's coming up, the All-Star break's coming, everybody starts to look at things. There's already trade rumors out there. You know, there's all kinds of things. I get it. Okay, I get it. All right, but here's the thing, okay? And there's not a lot here. In the last 2 weeks, something interesting has happened here. A lot of it's become apparent in the American League, okay? And I said this a couple weeks ago to an extent, but I think even more so now. We know who's going to be involved now. Okay, we know who we're going to be looking at here down the stretch. A lot of teams are just flat out of it or just terrible. The NL is a little bit more wide open, but even that's starting to open up, especially in the NL West. I think that it's important to know that you know, there isn't a lot of storylines here going on as far as the standings go. You know, we talked about the Yankees, how they overcome injuries. They're in first place. You know, Tampa's in second, but again, very close. The Red Sox have kind of come back from the depths. They're making a play, you know, all of them like 6 games of each other. You know, so things are very much opening up in that regard. So you're looking at a 3-team race there. And honestly, it's setting up for maybe 2 of those AL East teams to be the wild cards. Because, you know, nobody else is really stepping up in the air. I mean, Oakland's made a little bit of a stand. You got, again, Yankees leading the East by 1 game, and then Red Sox 6 back. So 1 game back is Tampa in that division. In the West, you got Houston up 6.5 games of Oakland. Oakland's kind of gotten back in the middle of things. So they're making a play like they did last year. And in the Central, the Minnesota Twins have a 10.5 game lead on Cleveland, who's struggling. So unless Cleveland gets hot, you're looking at the Yankees, the Rays, the Red Sox, the Twins, the Astros, and maybe the A's. That's 6 teams, okay? That's 6 teams for 1, 2, 3, 5 spots. Everybody else will be out of it unless Cleveland gets hot. There's not much to talk about there. We already knew the AL East race was going to be tight. And after what Oakland did last year, we knew Oakland might be involved with the Astros. So nothing shocking here. Look out for Seattle crash. See what I mean by not taking much stock early, even though the games matter. You can't go crazy. And the NL, it's again, the NL West is kind of opened up. The Dodgers now have a 7.5 game lead as everybody else is kind of falling off the pace. The Central is tight. The Cubs have a 1 game lead on Milwaukee, but the Cardinals and the Pirates are both 4.5 back. They're starting to drop back. The only really competitive division right now might be the NL East, but even then, the Phillies have a 2.5 game lead on the Braves and a 5.5 game lead on the Mets. And the Nationals are looking like they're going to be in the middle of a fire sale. So, I mean, again, nothing like earth-shattering. The wild cards are a mess, but you expect that right now. And that's not even worth talking about because some teams just going to be in it by default because it's early. But once we get to the 4th of July and beyond, then you'll start to be able to see who's, as far as the wild cards go, who might be in play to make some moves and go forward and who might be ready just to give up. I mean, it's just, again, it's very early. But again, I did say that one of the benchmarks of this was Memorial Day, and that's where you stand on Memorial Day right now. So you have an interesting race in the AL East. You have a somewhat interesting race in the NL Central. The other races are either, already setting up to be done or are barely hanging by a thread right now. They could improve. Yes, it's a lot of time, but that's where they're at. To me, there's bigger stories. Like you could talk about Dustin Pedroia. He might never play baseball again. Which it's not really shocking, but still, to me, that's a little bit of a bigger story, something like that. The standings, though, are not. So, people want me to do a little update. That's the best update I can give you because there's really not much else going on compelling that's in terms of the seasonal narrative right now. There's nothing else to talk about there. Like I said, there's some trade rumors now. I think by the middle of June, you might start to see some moves be made. We've seen that earlier. We've seen moves being made earlier and earlier in past years. So I think you'll see that some moves being made earlier than you usually expect. And when that happens, then I think you can amp things up a little bit. But right now, I think, even though we've passed our first benchmark of the season, I think it's still a little too early to get wrapped up in things. And especially since there's not, even if you don't want to get, even if you do want to kind of look at things and go, oh, yeah, this is where we're at. It's time to get serious. Again, a lot of these races are just not interesting right now. So, not much else to say but that. So, just wanted to throw it out there for the people that want me to do something with it. That's why I did it. So, don't expect that every week here until things pick up. So, I'm going to say. All right, we covered everything we had to cover in sports. So let's jump to some wrestling here, so we don't go on too long here. You might have noticed in the show description that I did not put Raw and SmackDown highlights for this week. Why is that? Because over these, whether it's last week or even this week, there just wasn't that many. WWE's in a bad spot right now. I mean, there's a few things like the Bray Wyatt stuff. Sami Zayn last night I thought did very well. I like the 24/7 stuff. I think it's fun. It's kooky, but it's fun. It's chaotic. They're doing some things where I think I was entertained by Brock Lesnar dancing. I'm kind of interested in where they're going because they're kind of acting like they're kind of treating him like a joke and having Rollins kind of egg that on a little bit, which I think is interesting. I like the way they're handling Rollins. I kind of like the way they're handling Becky now. The Bayley stuff interests me. They're losing me with Kofi a little bit because I don't like what they're doing. It's pretty obvious they're just, paying Owens back for the stuff that he's not going to Saudi Arabia. It's pretty obvious. But, I mean, there's some things I like, but for the most part, I think it's a god-awful mess. And look, this time of year, it happened at the same time of year last year too. They go into these lulls. I get it, but this is a pretty bad lull. And everything feels and looks directionless. It's like they're grasping at straws and they're desperate. And we'll talk about it in a minute. But with AEW and everybody kind of putting pressure on with that, and you have the crowd chanting that, and Vince apparently is furious with talent for talking about Double or Nothing, and fans are like, well, this is how you respond to what AEW did by giving us the Raw and SmackDown that you gave us this week. Like, there's a lot of tension and a lot of it's a very volatile situation. And look, I think WWE is really going to be under a microscope in the next 6 months Because if they don't get out of this hole, because look, we like I said, this year, every year around this time, we go into a little bit of a lull. And usually you got Money in the Bank and SummerSlam to bring you out of it. Well, Money in the Bank already happened, and that didn't bring them out of it. So now you're hoping that at SummerSlam that happens. If it doesn't, the fall was always a rough time for WWE too. So I don't really know. It wouldn't bode well for what they're going to be doing ratings wise and everything else. So they really have to get it together here and figure things out, because what they're doing right now is just not working. There are a few things that are working, but that's very few things. So they're in really a lot of trouble. When I even say, hey, look, we're not even going to do much Raw and SmackDown highlight talk because there isn't any. That's pretty telling. So before we talk about some of the other things like AEW and that, Mike, I'm sure you have a lot of Raw and SmackDown highlights, right?
No, I will say Firefly Funhouse. It was good. It was good. The, the slow unraveling of that story kind of continues with the story of Abby the puppet, and
Mm-hmm.
she doesn't want to be stuck in limbo. I'm like, oh, that's so creepy. There is so much more to go there. It's interesting.
Why can't we
Uh,
fill 2 hours of that?
yeah, Boombox Brock is the most personality Brock Lesnar's had in about 5 years. Um, it almost almost kind of validates that Money in the Bank decision, but in the end, you just can't. It just doesn't work. Brock coming out with a boombox and his music remix to like a dance theme it's great, but not worth it because you sacrifice the future to go back for a quick boost in ratings with Brock Lesnar. Ugh, big yikes. Yeah, Money in the Bank wasn't the show that would kind of move the scales one way or the other. And then the next show you do is Sweet Saudi Money 3, Blood Money Showdown, featuring the Kashirogi Memorial Battle Royal. I mean, come on. That is. It's. Look, you could tell they're putting not a whole lot of effort into this one. They have to go over and look the way Kevin Owens is being booked right now is it's a goddamn embarrassment. But it's because he told them late in the game that he didn't want to go over. Um, they can't they can't make him change his mind, but they can job him out on television. Like you were setting Kevin Owens up to be your world champion, and now you just jobbed him out twice in a row for no fucking sense, no fucking reason. And tonight's SmackDown, which I saw at Planet Fitness, that I was invested in that match. Owens was dominating. It's like it was building up to where Kofi Kingston was probably going to get counted out because he's taking this beating and he just can't answer the 10 count, and then he gets this miracle finisher and wins. I'm like, what kind of John Cena bullshit is this? Nobody liked when John Cena did that. And now we're doing it with Kofi Kingston. Kind of similar with Sami Zayn and Seth Rollins last night. They had a good match, but and I give Sami Zayn a lot of credit. That segment that he did, I know everybody focused on the one thing he said at the end, but what he said was, but the most important line I think was, I could win. I could win the Universal title anytime I want, but I don't care. It's more about criticizing you or being the critic of the critics.
All right.
So I think that kind of focused on Sami Zayn's character, but the problem is you're jobbing him out too much. He's lost to everybody now.
Yeah.
So there's your problem with Sami Zayn. It's like, well, it's great that he's a critic to the critics and he's doing all these great promos and everything, but you're jobbing him out to everybody. So he's slowly losing that credibility that he had. That's not good. I digress. Raw and SmackDown have been a bit of a shit show the last couple weeks. I don't know what to tell you. Baron Corbin versus Seth Rollins is the Universal title match.
Well, So we sound a show that nobody's going to see.
Dolph Ziggler versus Kofi Kingston is the WWE title match. Braun Strowman versus Bobby Lashley. The only two matches on that Super Showdown card of any juice is Randy Orton versus Triple H and 95-year-old Undertaker versus 94-year-old Goldberg. And by the way, I like both those. Oh, I like Undertaker. Goldberg's okay, but that's the. And by the way, neither of those guys have been on television to build that match.
Undertaker's going to be on SmackDown next week, they announced.
Oh,
A little late, though.
too late. Where's Goldberg?
Yeah, good point.
Goldberg couldn't be bothered to be flown out to a place to do a promo.
You know why he's doing it. I mean,
you know why everybody's doing it.
They want the paycheck.
Saudi money. Because everybody wants to have the honor of winning the Kashirogi Memorial Battle Royal. They didn't get that beautiful green ass Saudi Arabia belt. Because Braun Strowman is not defending it this year.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's no highlights, and obviously that Kashirogi Battle Royal is black humor for the sake of what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah, really. So what you mentioned Money in the Bank, and you know, people ask for our thoughts. I don't have a lot of thoughts. The only thing I thought really, you know, you and me were chatting about it the night. Well, because I was away and we were chatting about it as it was happening, and you know, you kind of let me know.
I was watching it, and you were
right
following it online.
You were letting me know what was going on, and obviously I knew about Bayley. I knew that beforehand. It's been said for a while that Bayley was going to win. I like the way they did that. By the way, I love Bayley winning the Money in the Bank match. I thought that was good. And Becky back-to-back matches. I liked the way they did that, and they transitioned it to Charlotte Bayley. I thought that was fine. Everything they did with the women, I thought was fine.
The only major criticism I have is you made these women tag team titles a thing, and they weren't anywhere on the show.
Yeah, that's I 100%. I thought for sure they were going to be, but yeah.
And the Iconics have been jobbed the fuck out since WrestleMania.
Yeah, it was pointless. You're right. You're 100% right.
My criticisms is where are the tag team titles?
Yeah. No, you're right.
Where were the tag team titles? Daniel Bryan and Raw were on the pre-show.
Yeah. No, you're right.
And who are the Raw tag team champions? Do you remember? It's Hawkins and Ryder.
Oh,
you wouldn't have known it.
No. So much for the. Guess they dropped that. All those demands that the Revival were going to be granted. Remember? Guess they dropped that. Because one of the things was revitalizing the Raw tag team division. Well, that didn't happen.
The Revival's going where? They're feuding with the Usos.
Look, I like what they did with the women at Money in the Bank. The men's match was fine until Brock came out.
They were all ready to make Ali right then and there.
Again.
Which is too bad. Ali's on the cusp of being like a major star, and then Brock Lesnar.
I'll give him a pass on Ray versus Joe because there was issues there. Ray's going to drop the title next week anyway. And obviously the Miz Shane thing was cheap. I think it was stupid, but Shane's facing Roman, so we all know what happened there. Seth and AJ had a great match. Look, it was one of AJ's better matches. Now AJ's going to be gone for. It seems like he's going to be gone for a while. It was said that he heard something pop in his back, I guess.
Yep. And
apparently he's banged up from other injuries. So I think AJ's. I would not be surprised if AJ's gone to Survivor Series. I don't know anything for sure. I'm just saying that my sense, he was already going to get a lesser schedule anyway. I mean, I suppose that maybe they use him for SummerSlam, but I think it'd be like they might give him in a SummerSlam program, and then you don't see him again until Survivor Series. That's my guess, but I'm not sure. Yeah. So I mean, it wasn't a bad pay-per-view, but it wasn't the best. The other thing too is you were telling me we all thought the stuff with the officiating was going somewhere, and never did.
No, it was just bad officiating for the sake of being bad officiating, which
So
made no fucking sense.
yeah, so why bother do like that? Like I mean, you thought for sure. And when I read everything and watched everything, I thought for sure it was going somewhere too. Um, I don't understand. See, this is what I'm talking about. Like everything's directionless. Like you watch one week and you think they're gonna go somewhere, and the next week they completely change gears. It reminds you a lot of like the only time I ever felt like, I mean, like I said, there's a lull every year around this time, but usually there's a little bit of a direction. This reminds me a lot of like right before WrestleMania 27, when every other week they were changing what their mind and what they wanted to do because of either because somebody did said no or whatever. You know what I mean? Like you could tell that there's like a lot of like conflicting visions going on. And until they commit to one vision and get themselves going in the right direction, they're in trouble. I mean, it really is messy. And look, AEW put on a show this weekend. I watched a good amount of it. I wanted to give it a little bit of a chance. And I only did that because some of the guys I knew. Because I don't usually look at other wrestling promotions. That's not my thing. But I I know some of the people involved, so I thought I'd just check it out. Honest to God, and this I'm not trying to, obviously I'm not trying to be a homer here because WWE's a mess right now, okay? But here's the thing. There wasn't much there. It was no different than watching, it was like a better version of like ROH or something. I mean, some of the matches were really good. I did like Cody versus Goldust, although again, you and me talked about this off the air, and I'm sure you'll elaborate on it a little bit. Where's the storytelling? Like, where's, the main event was good enough, but like, how long until when the novelty wears off and you get over like some of these programs, like, okay, now John Moxley's facing Kenny Omega, and then eventually he'll be Chris Jericho. Like, once you get past all this stuff, initial stuff, where are you going? Your roster's not big enough. Where
Ooh,
are you going?
well. Allow me to cut you off because of some news today. Because AEW is doing their next event, which is called Fighter Fest.
Mm,
They're teaming with the fighting game tournament CEO down in Florida, which is great. You would think though, that John Don't Call Me Dean Ambrose Moxley is going to be wrestling Kenny Omega at that event, right?
hmm
Nope.
Oh, I see it
He
now.
he is wrestling Joey Janela, who is an indie star signed with AEW. He's had a really really cool run. He's like the bad boy. He does some comedy, some serious. I don't know. I don't know too much about him, but you have John Moxley come out. This is where it doesn't make sense for me. You have John Moxley come out. You have him attack Jericho. You have him attack Omega. Well, logic would dictate that Moxley wants to go after Omega, because Omega is considered, despite Omega and Jericho are considered the alpha males in terms of the in-ring product, and Moxley's just kind of establishing himself with that. So why the fuck is his first match in AEW going after Joey Janela?
Yeah, good point.
It doesn't make any sense.
It's very
And
WWE like.
did you have, and I do have some thoughts about AEW, but were you done?
I don't have much else to say. Like I said, I just didn't think it was. Look, it's probably a slightly better looking, more sleeker version of a lot of the indie promotions. That's what it came off like to me. I didn't think the ending was that. I mean, I thought the ending with Ambrose was okay. Well, I should say Moxley was okay. It wasn't the best thing ever. Jericho Omega. We see like again, once novelty wears off, where you going? I didn't think it was overly impressive. I mean, there's some things I liked. The Cody Rhodes Triple H touch was kind of petty, but you know, I mean, look, I mean, you probably have more thoughts on it. I just didn't, I wasn't overly impressed. They did some things that I like, but really, ultimately, I think you said it too. In a few months, I don't know where they're gonna go.
All right, so I'm gonna be brief about it because I don't want to run on this too long.
Okay,
There are some things that I did enjoy, um, and I'm going to preface this by saying I didn't pay for the show. I didn't get the show legally. What I've seen on just like clips from Twitter and
yeah,
clips
same here.
on YouTube here and there.
Right.
the first thing I want to say is um, Chris Jericho's entrance was very well done.
Right.
We kind of went through the various era, kind of a brief selection of Jericho eras. That was good. And the buy-in battle royal, the pre-show, Adam Page had to win that because his match with Pac was one of the featured matches, but apparently the former Neville takes being the open the Dragon Gate champion very seriously. He was always going to beat Adam Page, according to AEW's number one fan, Dave Meltzer. He was always going to beat Adam Page, but it was always going to lead to a match with Kenny Omega, which Pac was not going to win. Way to give away that finish. Nice job, Dave. And so Pac and AEW, what's the point now? Because the only match people gave a shit about was Pac versus Omega. Why even bother with that anymore? It doesn't matter. Moving on. So Adam Page had to win, but the highlight of the damn Battle Royal was independent star Orange Cassidy and his unique, brutal offense on Tommy Dreamer. Brian probably has not watched this clip, but if you are familiar with Orange Cassidy, you know what I'm talking about. And if you're not familiar, I recommend literally YouTubing anything related to Orange Cassidy because the dude is he's great. He's great. He's a bona fide indie star. And once you see him, you'll know. And big ups to Chuck Taylor, who discovered Orange Cassidy like 6 years ago. The other thing I liked about the show, and obviously it was kind of this wasn't great for the fans, because for the so-called smart marks, after the best friends versus the two guys who were Lucha Underground and now are in an AEW match, and the best friends are Beretta and Chuck Taylor versus the two guys who were in Lucha Underground. I think one of them was Jack Evans. I don't know. I wasn't invested enough. They were attacked. There was this really cool after match thing, where this tag team known as the Super Smash Brothers, who had undergone a bit of a change in recent years, but it's really kind of not too much well known because there was an issue with their visas, so they haven't been really featured in America in a while. But they were big in PWG. They had some stints in ROH, I think. They were big in Chikara. Like, people know the Super Smash. People would have known the Super Smash Brothers. They had these bangers with the Young Bucks and Future Shock. And I guess for the uneducated Brian, Future Shock is the tag team of Kyle O'Reilly and Adam Cole. Whom I wonder if they're undisputed now. They are, spoilers. But the Super Smash Brothers made their big North American return. They had the help of because I guess the former player Uno, now his minions. He became evil Uno and has minions now, and player Dose, or I guess now he's Stu Grayson. I wonder who he likes best in comics. Became essentially Kratos, the god of war. Keeping with the video game theme. Literally destroyed these two tag teams, and it was a cool moment, and they did their finish to Beretta, which is called the Fatality, which is fucking really cool looking. And then they had this really cool pose at the end, and then they snapped their fingers, lights went out, and they were gone. The crowd was chanting, "Who are you?" to these guys. I'm like, you guys are supposed to be fucking smart marks. You guys are supposed to know everything. How did you not know who the Super Smash Brothers are? Obviously, they're not going to be called the Super Smash Brothers in AEW. Otherwise, Nintendo's going to send a cease and desist. It didn't matter when you were in PWG. It didn't even matter when you were in Ring of Honor. But now you're going to need to change your name, especially if you're going to be on TNT. But these smart marks didn't know who they were. It's like, that's fucking embarrassing. And not only that, the commentary team, other than Excalibur, wasn't aware. I'm like, Jim Ross didn't know who these guys are? I thought somebody would have flew Jim Ross in. And I don't know who that fucking guy was with Excalibur and Jim Ross, but he was god awful. I don't know who that guy was who was sitting with Jim Ross and Excalibur.
I forgot what his name was. Yeah, he wasn't good.
I don't know what his name was, but they need to replace him. Stat. Or just kind of keep it down to Excalibur and Lawler, or Excalibur and Ross. I don't even think you need Lawler.
Mm-hmm.
Excalibur and Jim Ross can handle announcing duties just fine. Period. If you really want a color guy, hey, what's Cole Cabana doing? It's not like WWE is going to be using him. But honestly, those were my positives about the show. It was cool seeing the Super Smash Brothers again. It was cool seeing the Jericho entrance. The Orange Cassidy stuff was great, but the matches were fine. Honestly, this is and briefly the take on the Cody thing. Yes, it was petty, but they wanted to send a message. You sent a message to Triple H, who is now, and you can tell, and I said this to you recently, and I saw this on Twitter, and it made a ton of sense. Triple H has a vacation home rent free in Cody's and AEW's head. Triple H, not even Vince McMahon, Triple H. That DX joke that he made to a DX member who took it as funny really got under their skin. Really got on. So now Triple H. And here's the weirdest thing. Out of everybody in the WWE hierarchy, nobody respected Dusty Rhodes more than Triple H.
Yeah.
Triple H gave him a job. Triple H made him the number 2 guy in NXT.
Yeah.
What the fuck? So why is Cody going after Triple H? Nobody in WWE respected his dad more than fucking Triple H.
Yeah.
So it came across as petty. It came across as insincere. The other thing and obviously the most story-driven match was Dustin versus Cody. But look, all of their history was based on another company. That's not great. It's not great at all. Because now you're relying on that history from another company, which is a big no-no generally, to kind of build your shit.
Yeah.
Because now they have to tell the story of what happened with them in WWE. Dustin's whole thing is, this is my last match. I'm retiring Goldust, and I have to beat up my younger brother who rose to prominence in WWE. We teamed together. It's like, what the fuck, guys? And by the way, what the fuck was Cody Rhodes doing in StarCast?
Yeah.
Why on earth would he throw Bayley under the bus? That's just stupid as shit. Because now you're bringing negative attention to this person you're trying to put over. I don't remember what her name is, but I remember he threw a dig at Bayley for no reason.
Yeah.
There was not even really any crossover between the two. It's like they never met.
Well, this kind of goes back to what we talked about a couple months ago. Remember when all that before WrestleMania, all the talk of all these talents leaving and going to AEW?
Sure.
And we were talking about how, well, if you're AEW, you don't want to just keep taking on bitter and battled former WWE stars, because it's going to set. You don't want it to be all about these refugees from WWE who are just bitter and not there for the right reasons. Like Ambrose, he leaves WWE, but you look at the way he left. WWE didn't trash him. They didn't they gave him a good send off. In fact,
they treated him like a huge star on the way out.
The send off went on for weeks longer than it was supposed to, and they didn't. They still have Renee Young employed. She's been announced for an India event with John Moxley, and they're not burying Renee Young. They're not doing anything hateful. They're treating it the right way. They're not being bitter about anything. Now, look, are they handling other people the wrong way, like Luke Harper and the right? Yeah, but here's the other thing: they haven't handled themselves well either. If you go back over the years, they haven't always handled themselves well either. I know we like to blame WWE for everything. It's not always. It's a two-way street too. And there's always been this understanding, and you know this as well as I do, that you're going to get garbage to do, and you have to find a way to make that. They often do that to test you, turn it into something. Daniel Bryan has done that time and time again. And where's Daniel Bryan? He's on TV every week. He's at the top of the card.
The guys who were on the top of the card were usually given some shit, and they turned it into
Exactly.
diamonds.
You're exactly right. And that's what they want you to do. That's how you prove yourself. That's how you make it work. And if you can't do that, then they know that you can't swim at the top level. That's how they know. And we talk. I was telling you this off there. I don't know what the deal is with Jericho. I don't know what the deal is with Goldust. Cody, I get it, but at the same time, look. As far as I know, from everything that I've read, I know there were some things here and there. For the most part, Triple H wanted more pushes for Cody Rhodes.
Yeah, he did.
As far as I know, everything I've heard, I know there was disagreements here and there. I know that there were some issues at the end with creative direction and all this other stuff. But as far as I know, he was always supportive and wanted Cody. Whenever Cody started to get a big push, it was usually with Triple H and Stephanie behind it.
Yeah, and not only that, didn't Triple H put over Cody Rhodes a few times with Legacy?
Mm-hmm.
Legacy beat DX.
Yep.
Clean-ish.
And you had that authority angle with the Rhodes family.
Yeah. The Rhodes went over the Shield in the time where nobody went over the Shield.
So what's the issue here?
Cody was upset that he had to keep being Stardust because. And Triple H told him, well, we all have a role to play. Triple H was challenging him to do more with the role. He was trying to say, Cody, do something with this.
Which is what he's done to a million other people, and it works out.
And by the way, whose idea was Stardust to begin with?
Cody Rhodes.
Whoa, it's only AEW.
But this is what I'm saying, though. You and me were talking about, like all these guys made these decisions themselves. Nobody made these decisions for them. Jericho wanted the part-time schedule. Goldust wanted the part-time schedule. The only guy
that not only wanted the part-time schedule, he wanted to be an agent.
Yeah, the only guy that made this jump that I don't have an issue with right now is Ambrose. Because I think both sides handled it the right way. Ambrose wasn't happy. They were, and they let him go, but they didn't wreck him. And I think both sides amicably handled it. It's like, okay, we left an open relationship here. He's going to do his thing. We're going to do ours, and we can go back to it. Now, I know a lot of people think that's because he's a part of the Shield, and they want to somehow get the band back together someday.
No shit.
But they still, when does that ever stop them from trying to bury somebody after he leaves?
Hell, look what they've done. Look what they're doing to Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn now, and they're not even leaving.
Right. This is what I'm saying. They're petty. The fact that they didn't do that with Ambrose should say something. I mean, and let's be honest here. They're not doing that with Chris Jericho. They're not saying anything in the media about Chris Jericho.
Chris Jericho is the one accusing WWE of all these things, and all WWE has done is not talk about Chris Jericho.
Yeah.
And if they do mention Chris Jericho, it's nothing but respectful.
There has not been a bad thing. Even with Cody and Goldust, they haven't said anything about him.
No, nothing.
So this is what I'm saying. Who's the ones that look bad right now? Of course, they're not going to look bad because you got all the AEW marks out there that are like, oh, this is going to turn WWE on its ear. Again, and I'm going to wrap it up with this. In 6 months, let's see where they're at.
Well, in 6 months, they have to be their show is debuted, but they have to maintain an audience on that show.
You have to. Look. Nobody's expecting to get a WWE audience here. Nobody's expecting that. But I told you this. I think the number you should have in mind, you're going to get a good number at the top. You know that. That's how everything, and then it levels off. To me, it has to level off at a range where it's about, what, 25% in that range of WWE's audience. I think that's a fair start to me. And if you don't level off there, Turner's going in a year. Turner's going to be like, look, you're costing us too much. We can't. We got other program we can put here. They got NBA. They got other sports stuff they can turn to. And that's another thing too. What's going to happen? You know, Turner's got a lot of other commitments as far as sports goes. What's going to happen this spring in that when they have these other commitments? What's going to happen with AEW? Is going to get tossed all around the schedule?
Well,
That,
that was the big problem that Turner had back when Ted Turner was running it.
right.
With WCW.
Yeah.
They didn't have the amount of commitments they had then. They
Mm-hmm.
have now, and then let's be honest here. TNT specifically has had some trouble filling up their schedule. So AEW does fill a hole for a while.
It does. It does.
But when you have NBA coming back, and when you have NASCAR, I don't know if they still do NASCAR.
Sometimes they just yeah.
And then you've got MLB kind of still being a thing, especially when playoff baseball starts. So that's more of a TBS thing.
They get the college games in spring, March.
Also, yes, they get they get March Madness.
Mm-hmm.
And there are going to be March Madness games on Wednesday.
Yeah.
What the fuck are you going to do with AEW? You're not. I'm sorry if you have, and saying this is going to be painful, and I apologize to everybody out of this. If you have one seed Gonzaga playing at 10 o'clock on a Wednesday in a marquee game, are you going to preempt that for AEW?
Well, they wouldn't be playing on a Wednesday. The only Wednesday game would be the first four, right?
Doesn't matter. I'm using it.
But yeah, I see what you're saying, and I agree with you. Well, let's be fair here. Just some random NBA game. If they get like Golden State versus the Knicks with Kevin Durant on a Thursday night, what's going to get the better number?
Sorry, Kenny.
Because I'm telling you right now, it's going to get the better number. Because I'd be up watching that game. But yeah, that's I'm saying you got issues here that are involved. Look, if you ask me right now, they're gonna last. They'll last a few years at least. After that, I don't know. I just don't know if they can sustain themselves. I really don't.
And here's the other thing, and this is the biggest criticism that I think I have of AEW, and you mentioned it too. Where the fuck are your storylines?
Yeah, that's my issue. Yeah.
You should have had at least 2 or 3 storylines started at Double or Nothing, and you didn't. And if you thought you may have, you dropped the ball with some of these match announcements for Fyter Fest.
Right.
What the fuck are you doing?
Right. No.
You're saying wins and losses matter. Well, that's all well and good, but you have to have some storylines. WCW was dead in the water until the NWO was huge. And then the Sting storyline. They had those 2 major storylines to kind of carry them to their success. WWE is in the shits now. But when it comes time, once we get past the Sweet Saudi Money 3, Blood Money's Revenge, to something that's like something that kind of matters more, like SummerSlam, WWE is going to pick up their game. And not only that, it's like, oh, and I've seen this criticism too, and it makes total sense. Like, yeah, AEW has a thing, but WWE is not their competition. NXT is.
Yeah, that's a good point.
NXT is. And I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. NXT is going to have a show, I think. Is it this weekend or next weekend?
I think it's next weekend.
It's unaffiliated. It's the first one that's unaffiliated with any pay-per-view since forever. That's probably going to blow AEW out of the water. And you had Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks and Chris Jericho and Cody and Dustin and
Hmm.
this could be a show highlighted by what? Johnny Gargano versus Adam Cole. And they had a fucking 5-star classic, 2 out of 3 falls.
He's injured, right?
Who, Gargano?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that may mean that he might drop the title, but he's going to wrestle.
I mean, I don't think it's that bad, but he might drop it. Yeah, you're right.
And that's fine because it's time to crown the Undisputed Era anyway. And then you've got what? Velveteen Dream versus Tyler Breeze in a match people have wanted to see for a while. And then you've got what? Matt Riddle versus Roderick Strong, which should be a banger. And then you've got Shayna Baszler versus Io Shirai. Holy shit. And not only that, all of those matches have storylines. So the emotional investment is more.
Yeah. I think that's, the big problem with WWE right now is there isn't, storyline wise, it's very weak. When WWE is doing well, the storylines are interesting. Like, that's why during WrestleMania season, they're usually at their peak because the storylines are usually interesting. They're more emotional, they're more captivating because you got different things going on. Maybe somebody think a big Cinderella like push like Kofi Kingston or Daniel Bryan, or you have somebody going against the system like Becky Lynch, you know what I mean? Or you have like The Miz and Shane had this really hot grudge match, or what's the other one that was good?
Rollins and Lesnar.
Well, that one wasn't that good. They didn't build that up really well. Triple H Batista was okay. I mean, I thought they could have done more with it, but the match itself was entertaining. Yeah, but you know what I'm saying, though? Like, you have these storylines that are based on history or based on something current. And you run these things, and that's where WWE excels, and that's where AEW has to get better, or they're gonna take in water pretty fast.
Well, they got to learn to be that good, I guess.
And here's the thing: your first stories are probably going to be very weak, and they're not going to get investment. You're going to have to kind of build. You're going to have to use those first stories to build other stories, and it takes off from there. That's how it usually works. And WWE has the benefit of being on for years and years and years. They can use history. They can use something that happened a couple months ago and go right into it, and just use that. And I think and as far as WWE goes, if they just come up with, we're going into summer. You usually have a big summer angle, right? Find a big summer angle and make that it. It could be Bray Wyatt.
Could be.
It could be Bray Wyatt. You built it up enough. You got some interesting mystery and intrigue. Find somebody for Bray to face. Make it the summer of Bray Wyatt and run with it. And that could be enough to kind of lift everything else up. Because once you get that big A angle that's everybody wants to watch, you can kind of focus on getting other angles going. And then all of a sudden you have yourself back on track. We've seen them go into ruts like this before, and then all of a sudden, like literally overnight, it changes. Remember how bad things were before the Nexus angle?
Mm-hmm.
Or before the Punk angle? Or, Daniel Bryan rising and having that summer of Daniel Bryan type thing. I mean, that we've seen this time and time again. God, a couple years ago, I thought it was going to be a miserable summer, and somehow they pulled out a red-hot main event scene with Roman Reigns, Braun Strowman, Samoa Joe, and Brock Lesnar. It entertained the hell out of us all summer. You just have to find it, and once they find it, they'll be set. AEW is far from finding that kind of stuff. They really are, because they're just in their infancy, and it's gonna take a while before they do that. And they're going to need, and honestly, it's going to take having some TV time to do that. So, all right, we did enough. We're done. We covered it. Obviously, we'll keep covering things like AEW Net going forward, and we'll see how everything pans out. But as far as tonight goes, that is it for tonight. As always, the show might be over. It's not me have to stop interacting, tune into our show, continue to have your voice heard. And it's your questions about the show and the scheduling of the show, topic ideas, breaking news items, sports, entertainment, wrestling you want us to cover, feedback, questions about the show and the scheduling of the show, comments, reactions, opinions, any of these things you can do. Send us by email, Facebook, and Twitter. You can email us at itspotlight411@gmail.com. You can follow us and tweet us at itspotlight411. Remember to use the hashtag itspotlight411 for anything you tweet regarding our show. And on Facebook to find us, use our full show title in the Spotlight 411. And then make sure that you like our fan page. So follow us on Facebook and Twitter, please. Very important so that you can interact with us, know what's going on with the show at all times. Very important that you follow us on social media. There'll be a lot of social media stuff coming your way this summer, so make sure that you do that. You have two ways to keep up with the show and look back at classic episodes. You can stream us anytime on YouTube. Just search for In the Spotlight 411 on YouTube. When you do, you'll be taken to our show page on YouTube where you can access every episode we've ever produced for YouTube, going way back from mid-October 2015, way up to tonight's current episode. Those episodes are available for you to stream anytime you want on YouTube. Just head over there to YouTube and search for In the Spotlight 411. If streaming's not your thing, maybe prefer to listen to us or listen to us on the go. Or maybe you're interested in older episodes of the show. If any of that applies to you, check us out on our main host sites, Podbean and iTunes. Just search for In the Spotlight 411, and when you do, be taken to our show page on both sites where we have access to every episode we've ever produced in the 8 years we've been doing the show. So all of our Blog Talk Radio original episodes, all of our talk show episodes, all of our current YouTube episodes transferred into audio format for your convenience. Every episode we've ever done is available for you to listen to on the go, all available in audio format for you to listen to anytime you want. Maybe you want to listen to an older episode for whatever reason, or you want to listen to a newer episode, miss an episode, whatever the case may be, you can do all that and more on our main host sites, Podbean and iTunes, to search for In the Spotlight 411. So Google Plus, YouTube, Podbean, iTunes, your ways to keep with the show and look back at classic episodes. Search for In the Spotlight 411. You're going to search for In the Spotlight 411. I want to thank Mike for being here tonight. Thank you, Mike.
I'm going to go to bed. I've been on later than I wanted to be.
Well, you were interested. It happens. I want to thank myself for another great show. Promise about it back. And thank all of you for your continued support and contributions to the show. Thank you so much for watching. And to those who will be watching or listening to this later in archive, thank you to you as well. That is it for tonight. Again, we got another show coming up on Thursday. That'll be an entertainment show. We'll talk box office beat, TV highlights, some other special stuff. We'll do some TV upfront stuff, some Game of Thrones. We'll do all that on Thursday's show. And then next week we'll have two shows coming at you as well. And then in the coming days we'll talk more about what's coming up and all the important announcements we have to make. All that will be coming up for you soon here, so make sure you keep tuning in for that. With that in mind, that is it for tonight. I hope you all, first of all, I hope you all had a great Memorial Day weekend, a great 2 weeks here. Again, we're back. I hope you all have a great rest of your night and a great middle of your week here. We'll see you back here this coming Thursday night, 10 o'clock from Eastern Time for our next show. Until then, good night, everybody.